Let's go ahead and look at some of these other classes too and what they've done with their top block and some of their other modules or topics. Let's look at Bryan Greenwood's class. So here's the top block. So he added this course and instructor information by unselecting that little checkbox and typing that in that little title box. Then he's also added his image, and then he added office hours information and this here's to an awesome fall quarter. So all of this from here up is in that edit summary. And how do I know that? When I click on turn on editing in the right hand upper corner, here is that little icon right there for the edit summary. Let's go ahead and turn editing off again. You can also do that here as well. You can turn it on or off so you can see the other content blocks and how I organized. So again, the business of the class, general information, and then he has a title that he typed here, and then some information about the date of the class and what they'd be doing in class. So you can see, and he's also added images by aligning right or left. Okay, so that's Bryan's class. Let's go ahead and scroll up, and then we'll also look at another class and how they did their top block and organization. So here is another one where they typed some text in that text field on the top, and then she added a quote with an image and then more information. Again, she gave a title to her topic. So even in topics, you can call it weeks. Weeks, if you choose weekly format, it will put a date in that block, so you might want a date. It's up to you. Here is another class. Some faculty choose to organize their content into the main categories of the class, and so this is a lab class. So instead of having it based on each week or a chapter, however, they wanted to organize it based on the quarter system, they can also do it by main topics, like the syllabus, all the lab materials are in one section. Any of the lab activities can be in a section. So you can see it's in different sections based on the main topics. So that's also another way you can organize content. This is a great way for organizing for lab classes. Here's a Bray class. This is Franklin Gowdy's class. So again, you've got some welcome information with an image. Again, you have the ability to add a title to each content block, adding images. This is different for some of you. Right here, you've got this label to organize sections, chunk them into consistent formats. So how do you create labels and where are those? Let's go to my blank course. So the one thing about courses is that the way the PolyLearn system works is, like I said, you can do this edit summary where you can add textual information, but then say you wanted to put some files in here. You can add files through this add activity or resource, and if you come down here, you can click on file and add. That's one way you can add files. You can also add a folder. A folder is a tool that lets you create a space to add mini files into the folder. It can only put files in a folder though, and what I mean by files, I mean the folder can hold PDFs, docs, Excel, CAD, file types, that the person has the ability to open. But a folder would not allow you to put in a PolyLearn activity like an assignment, a lesson, any of these. So I've had some people say they wanted to kind of organize in a folder everything they wanted them to do and put it in there. like a quiz or a lesson or an activity assignment, unfortunately, it won't let you do that. It only lets you put files in it. So there's other ways you can organize your activities for that particular week or day. So another way you can add files is by clicking and dragging, which is pretty cool. So if you open up your fun parts, trying to maneuver things around so you can see how I can do that. So let's go ahead and open. Okay, so here's some files. You can also do more than one file. So if I want to select, okay, say I needed to put all these PDFs in my week 1 introduction. I can click, drag, let go. So now I've got all these files in here. These are PDFs. A student can click on them. It's going to open them in the browser, so the student can read the PDF files. They can also download them if they want by choosing to download them. So I just right-clicked or double-clicked or two-finger-clicked on that. What does a student see when you do something like that? So that's how they see week 1, and then here's the different files. But it's not quite clear what you want them to do with that. So you might want to label it. So in week 1, each week I'm going to have readings, I'm going to have activities, I might have a discussion, so on. So I'm going to do this add an activity or resource. And I'm going to come down here where it says label, and I'm going to add. Okay, a label is very similar to like the edit summary, but the cool thing about the label is it will float around. It goes everywhere in your course, not just the top of a block. And then you might also notice that I have less options here. If you click on this little button here, it will expand so I have more options. So say I need a label called readings. So each week I have readings, and this is something that I want to add importance to. So it's bigger than the actual reading items themselves. The cool thing is this is an HTML window that you can add images to. You can use it to, you can create a label, a separate label than this one, where you put in your learning objectives, whatever you want to use a label for. It can be done because it's an HTML tool. So let me go ahead and save that so you can see. Here's my readings. I can also move this, so I want to click and drag and move it above. Okay, so here's the readings. I can also give readings more importance by indenting, move right. Okay, so I'm going to say that I want, so I'm going over here on the right hand side, I'm editing and I'm moving them all. Okay, so readings now has all these things underneath it. Let me go ahead and turn editing off so you can see. So again, that's how you can set that up. So labels are great. Let me show you again some examples of labels. Labels are great. Here's a label here. Okay, so I wrote pre-survey instructions and then also typed some text that provided some information about what they need to do with this survey, which is an actual questionnaire. Add activity questionnaire. Let's see, here's another label. So labels can be more than just one word. Let's look at some other classes. So Bryan also uses labels. So a lot of these in his class are actually the edit summary. So all this is edit summary for him. You can tell when you see a label when you have activity in between. Trying to find another course with labels. Here we go. So Franklin's course has got some labels: presentation, problem set, lab assignment, and so on. Something else I wanted to show you about labels. Let me go back to my online class. I also like to use labels to create these horizontal lines. It just helps to break things up. So I've got my learning objectives, it's a page. Then I've got my readings in a PolyLearn page. Then I have a discussion assignment they're supposed to do. There's a wiki project they're supposed to work on, some instructions for this survey that they're supposed to take, or as PolyLearn calls it, it's a questionnaire. So you can see that I've got those horizontal lines throughout. You can create horizontal lines yourself. Let me go ahead and edit this one so you can see. So here's the horizontal line. They can be moved just like anything else. I'm going to go ahead and edit it so I can look at the code. It is HTML. So when I click on this little HTML button here, Edit HTML Source, here's the code for a horizontal line. So you could create a horizontal line that's just black. It would be HR/ and brackets. That's just plain old horizontal line, nothing special. But I created that gold color, which is this here. You can actually find the Hex Colors. So basically it's web-friendly colors in any browser by Googling Hex Color, and you'd get this 6-digit number. So you have to do this pound and then these digits here. And then that would specify the color. Again, you don't have to do colors if you don't want to. You can just do a plain HR, which would be a black line. The cool thing about doing the HR, as you see here that's highlighted, is that, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this, is that the line will expand the size of the page. So no matter how big your web page is, you know, depending on the monitor and the size of the student's browser and their monitor, it will scale and adjust to fit that. So it will expand, the HTML will create that line and to expand the whole thing. If you just did a line, you know, using your keyboard, it's only going to be as long as you created the line. So that's why I like to use the HR. The other cool thing about doing that, so let's go over here and just create one really quick. Turn editing on. I'm going to do it down here. I'm going to create a label. Okay, the only thing I need to do is go into the HTML code. If you try to do this in the actual text box and not in the HTML code, it will show the code, you know, the brackets with the HR/, and it won't actually have this line that you see here. So if you just see that, the code on the page, then you didn't do it in the HTML editor. So make sure you do it in there, and then you should see this in the box. So I'm going to save and return to course. Okay. This is the cool part that I like. So you can move these around, right? You can move anything around. You can even move blocks around with this right up here in the corner. But under the edit, I can duplicate. Okay, so I want to duplicate this HR label. Okay, and then I can move it. So even this here, the readings, say I do this reading label in every single block, because you should create a consistent layout for your course to make it easy for your students to find your resources. So it can be very helpful to create these items and then just duplicate them so you're not retyping and so on. Let me turn editing off again. Let's see what students see. So you can see how it's really starting to come along. More content and things I put in there. The other thing I wanted to show you was in Franklin's Bray class. You might have noticed when we were poking around looking at his class that this block looks a little different. See how it has this kind of grayish outline to it? As the instructor, you could choose, while the course is in session and you're teaching it with editing on, you can say, today we are in week 1. By clicking on that little light bulb, it highlights that block and says, this is the block you should be looking at. It's just a visual cue to make this block a little more important. And then if I'm in week 1 and I don't want my students to go ahead, I could choose to hide the other weeks. Now, unfortunately, this is a manual process in which the instructor has to remember to go in during the particular times to hide or unhide or give importance or deselect. So unhide as the quarter goes on. If you don't want to hide the blocks, the coming blocks, you could do that. Just leave it as is, but then just give importance to the ones that you wanted to give importance to. Another option is, let's look at this class here. Unfortunately, this image is broken, but it's a very well laid out class. Let me turn editing off so you can see what students see. Okay, this is another option too. See how you've got required text, introduction, module 1, module 2, but it's very minimal in regards to how much information is showing. You can also hide blocks so that students aren't just thrown into 10-week blocks in a really long scrolling class. You do need to make sure you tell the students that you hid the blocks and how to unhide them, because some students don't quite understand how that works. But when you click on the name of the block, what happens is it expands that block. So you always have the top block, and then you have the expansion. So here's all the information that has to do with the introduction of the class. And then the student can go to the other blocks. So that's another way of providing importance. This is the block I'm in today. The student will have to manually click on the correct block, though, and understand that the block is minimized. So you can see that, but then the student does have the ability to access all the other blocks. Again, just making sure that the student understands that has been designed like that. So that's another way of trying to organize course content and minimize too much information. How do you do that? So I already showed you how you could highlight boxes and hide them. If you want to minimize, you would do that in the edit settings at the same place that you turn the class on or show the class. And so if I expand all over here on the right, you can show one section per page. Okay, so right now it's showing all sections. If you choose show one section per page and then save, then that's how the class will show up for the students. So when you set that, then that means your whole class is set up that way. All your students will see it in that format. So again, make sure your students understand that that's the way it works. When you turn editing on, it opens everything up for you so that you can easily develop it. But always, just turn editing off and poke around so you can get an idea how students see the course.